In this particular month, in the month of May 2026, I'm going to be answering questions about relationships, and in particular, committed relationships or just problems that people typically have in their relationships. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. I've been doing this nearly 25 years as a therapist, and so I've seen a lot of couples and a lot of issues over the years. But one question that came in, or a topic that came in, was why do we keep having the same arguments over and over again? And I think that's a great question. And a lot of times that's what brings couples to the therapy room is that they notice that they're having the same conflicts over and over again, and they want to somehow or another alleviate those conflicts or figure out a way through it. So, first of all, one of the things that I tell couples all the time when they come in to see me is I could really care less what you're arguing about, but what I am interested in is what is the pattern or how is it that you argue with each other? How does all of that go down? Because the truth of the matter is, the content of what's going on isn't as important as the process of what happens when two people interact or get into a conflict. But first of all, I want you to invite you to kind of think about what are the patterns? How do your arguments usually start? Is there one particular partner that tends to start the arguments? And now, a lot of times I hear from couples that they blame each other for that. No, I don't start them, you start them, and all of those kinds of things. And there again is the pattern. And so, one of the things, one of the leading researchers, a couple, John and Julie Gottman, are leading researchers into the science of marriage and relationships. They talk about something they refer to as the four horsemen of the apocalypse. And what they had found out in their research is if they saw four things going on in a relationship, then if these four things weren't changed, that relationship was doomed to fail. And so those four horsemen are criticism, defensiveness, stonewalling, and contempt. Now, I might have them out of a little bit of order the way the Gottmans use them, but this is the way they make sense to me. The first one is criticism. And when we notice that we are being critical of our partner or that they are being critical of us, that gives cause for the second horseman, which is defensiveness. If you think about the typical arguments that most couples offer, is that one member of one partner might feel like they're being criticized by their partner, or they receive criticism from their partner, and so they want to naturally defend themselves, particularly if they feel like the criticism is unwarranted. And so couples get into a pattern of criticizing and then going on the defensive with each other. And this just kind of keeps perpetuating itself if they're not recognizing that pattern. And this generally leads to the third horseman of the apocalypse, and that is stonewalling. And stonewalling, it just simply means avoiding your partner, avoiding interactions, avoiding things when there is conflict, and maybe even shutting down when there is conflict. And so if that goes on long enough, that leads to contempt. In other words, you get to where you just don't like each other. You don't like your partner. You don't want to be around them. And when a relationship reaches that point, unless there's some major changes made, usually the relationship is over when it reaches the contempt kind of phase of things using this model. So, what can you do to help with all of this? Number one is have conversations about conflict at a time when neither person is emotionally flooded. Or, in other words, don't try to work out difficult topics in the heat of the moment. Most of us, if we are confronted by our partner or we feel criticized or defensive, it gets that emotionality of the whole thing up. In other words, we get more angry. It's like a thermometer. The heat goes up and up. And when it starts going up, like that's the point at which each person needs to back off and say, hey, let me kind of settle down here. Let me try try to argue my point or win the argument at this point, but really just kind of bring the temperature down of the argument. And then come back to it and have a conversation about, okay, if I've got something that is bothering me about you, what's the best way for me to bring that up with you? And vice versa. If my partner or my potential partner has a conflict with me, what's the best way for them to bring it up with me so that I hear it and have a listening heart, so to speak, of being willing to listen to what my partner is having to say. And that's another thing too, is I always kid around and say, God gave us two ears and one mouth for a reason. And that is that we need to learn how to listen more and listen deeply. And the thing about it is that when we start getting at the patterns, then we'll notice that we're not having the same arguments over and over again. We kind of get to the root of what's going on, and then both people feel like they're being heard and understood. And that's really kind of the bottom line to a healthy relationship, where both people feel safe within the relationship. Bad news is there's never a relationship without conflict, but the couples that are the healthiest know how to resolve those conflicts in a way that doesn't get emotionally flooded. And they're able to listen and walk through it and come to some sort of understanding. And when we come to an understanding, then we feel heard. And so that's it in a nutshell. Why you have the same arguments over and over again. The key is that you're in a pattern. And so learn how to break the pattern.